Interrupting. Everyone does it. Kids do it. You probably do it, unfortunately. I do it. Oh, that's convicting even just saying it, but that's what we're going to talk about today. So, interrupting is a giant thing in teaching and training kids. It's actually a big pet peeve of mine, so I'm kind of excited to talk about it, but I think it's super important. As moms, as dads, we need to make sure we're training our kids not to interrupt. And what do I mean? You know what I mean by interrupting, right? Some kid walks up to you, you're in a conversation. This could be you're on the phone. This could be you're talking to your spouse in a conversation, looking at them eye to eye. This could be you're at church, you're at the grocery store, wherever, and they have a need. I mean, it's always a really big, important need, right? You know, it's kind of like some silly question usually that they don't need answered right now. But they've got to ask you right then, so they interrupt. Mom, mom, mom. They're either tugging on your clothes, or they're like tapping you, or they're just saying it over and over again. Anyways, I'm sure we've all been in this situation. And I want to talk to you about how a Christian mom should try and strive to teach their kids to not do this. Okay, so what do you do if your kid comes up and they interrupt you? So I actually learned this from another mom. I can't take credit for it, but I've read this and I've seen this and I've lived this out in my own life, and it's super helpful. What you need to do is have a system for when they want to talk to you. So you've got this little guy, this little girl, and they want to share something with you, but you are busy. So I use two things. They have two options. Maybe you start with one if they're really small because you don't want to overwhelm them. But you show them the hand on the arm rule. Have you seen this at all? So my kids will walk up and they'll put their hand on my arm. And that tells me that they have something they want to ask me. It also tells me that they know I'm in a conversation and that they're going to wait. What I do is I cover my hand over their hand. So it's like boom, boom, you know? And that's me telling them, you know, I hear you, I see you, I know you're there, but I'm still in a conversation, so you're gonna have to wait. And then I just keep talking. I keep finishing my, you know, whatever I'm saying to my husband or my friend, and then I can say, yes, what did you need? And I can turn to the kids and address their needs. Or the second thing you can teach them to do, and sometimes this happens like across the room kind of, they'll walk up and they'll just put a finger up. So my kids, I've taught them, if you have something to say, you're gonna interrupt, don't interrupt, but instead, just do this. So they'll do this, they'll walk up to me, and sometimes they're like behind, you know, the person I'm talking to, you know, mom, I've got a finger. And so I will often just give them a nod, like I see the finger in the air, I know you're waiting, and they're communicating to you that they're happy to wait. Okay, so how do you practically train a young kid to do this? Okay, it's pretty fun. So I like to do this at home. I actually use a stuffed animal when they're little because they can really get this at a very young age. I will grab a little stuffed animal and I'll say, you know what, it's so important for us to not interrupt. And I like to give a little Bible lesson because that's me. When you interrupt, you're telling the other person talking they're not important. We want to be respectful. The Bible says we need to be respectful. Do you understand that? You know, you don't want someone to think your words are more important than their words. I mean, you can do a whole little Bible lesson on respecting other people, listening, waiting your turn, sharing. I mean, it kind of covers a lot of different areas, right? So I like to have that little lesson, and then I grab a little stuffy and I put the stuffy's hand on my arm, and we pretend that this little stuffed animal is trying to interrupt me. So I have a conversation with my kiddo, let's just say Aaron, my little 5-year-old, and I tell him, oh, we're talking, oh, here comes, you know, your otter, and he has something to say, and watch, he's gonna put his arm on me, and then I cover my hand over his arm, and Aaron's of course giggling because I'm trying to make this a fun thing. And basically we pretend the otter, now what if the otter just kept talking, you know, and I show a bad version? Like, what if the otter walked up and just started talking to us? That would interrupt our conversation. What if the otter was waiting, and he was waiting patiently, and he was waiting still? And so I try to show with this stuffed animal, you know, what I expect of my kiddos. Bodies should be still, voices should be quiet. You know, you shouldn't be like this, because what's so funny is, of course, when they first try this, you're gonna see like their hand is on your arm, but they're like, you know, they're giving you this, they're tugging your arm, they're actually pulling your arm, or they're making little sounds like, you know. And so we go over this whole scenario at home, this like whole little training session at home where We use a little stuffed animal and we show what not to do and what to do. And we explain body and movement, all that. Face, you should look like you're happy to wait, you're patiently waiting. Then the next step, I think, in training this is by involving your spouse. So dad comes home that night. I like to say, hey dad, we talked about interrupting today. Oh, you did, you know, got the dad, oh cool man, what did you learn? And so, of course, you know, the little guy is trying to learn how to interrupt correctly. He's explaining that he needs to wait his turn. And I'm like, I think we should practice. So then you have a practice session, right, with your own spouse in the comfort of your own home. By doing these 2 little training sessions, and you could do multiple different people, siblings, grandparents, whatever, it shows them in a safe environment and in a good environment how you should really do this out and about. Okay, the next step is to take it to a public place, and you really have to be on it those next few days specifically if this is something new for a little one. You know, you gotta say, when I'm talking, even on a drive somewhere. So for me, on our drives to church, I would say to my kids, remember, if you want to interrupt, if you have something to say, what do you need to do? And of course, the older ones by now are like, we know, Mom, you know, but the little guy that I'm really working with, he said, I'm gonna put my hand on your arm. Yeah, that's gonna be so great. Make sure you just wait patiently. And then when we're at church, he gets an opportunity, because of course, you know, he wants a donut, or he wants to show me the picture he drew, or whatever it is. And so he's gonna walk up and put his hand on my arm, and I'm gonna, you know, give him a little wink, smile, and I'm gonna keep talking with whoever it is I'm talking to, and he's gonna be forced to wait. So a few tips to just like think through when you're doing this. Think about not making them wait forever on this. I know for sure I've made my kids wait like way too long, and then they get really antsy. They're kind of stressed out. They think this is so important. You know, 2-3 minutes is too long to wait. But if they're a little one, 10-15 seconds, that's probably, you know, as they get older, you add time. I've made my 11-year-old wait for a full minute or so, just because I want them to see this interaction with this person is so important. So you just kind of start with the small time and you build off of it. So the last step, I think, in teaching your kids to interrupt well, because we do not want them to be rude, is to talk about it and give the report at home. This is another something that I love to do. You're probably gonna hear me say this over and over again in the other episodes, but when we get home from that public outing where they've had the chance to practice interrupting, to do it well, I like to say, hey, how do you think it went? Oh, hey, Erin, how did it go interrupting? What did you think about that? You know, and then I get to hear, well, I had to wait so long, or, you know, it took forever for you to keep, you know, talking. You didn't, you know, I get to hear his perspective and, you know, verify it. Like, yeah, you did have to wait, bud, but remember why we're interrupting. And then I like to give him a praise or, you know, critique if necessary. So I'll say to him, you know, you did a really good job. You didn't wiggle around. You didn't interrupt with your words. I'm so proud of you. Or as we know, sometimes I will have to say to my kids, you didn't really do a great job, right? You came up, maybe you put the hand on my arm or you put the finger up, but you basically didn't wait well. Your body language told the person you weren't waiting well, or you were making sounds, or you were getting frustrated. I have one kid who's like, like kind of starts growling when they have to wait. And so I'll just give that report and say, hey, I think you could change it and do a better job next time. And I want to teach my kids that if I'm talking to their dad, if I'm talking to another adult, if I'm on the phone, which is a huge thing too, they need to just wait their turn, and they need to be patient and be okay with not having me right away, right when they need me. But I do always want to remember as a good mom that, you know, kids are kids and they're going to make those mistakes. They're going to need grace from us. They're going to need repetition. They're going to need love and understanding, especially if they're overtired or especially if they're hungry. Those are not times when they're going to be the best at interrupting us correctly. So we want to make sure to give them that grace too.